So we just finished watching My Hero Academia Heroes Rising, and I am so excited to talk about it with you.
I would say, yeah, so we are going to go into spoilers in this video review. We're not going to spoil anything that's happened in like the late chapters of the manga, but if you haven't caught up with the anime, for instance, maybe you want to stick away from this, or if you haven't seen the movie yet, obviously.
Yeah, more specifically the movie for sure. But yeah, so let's go ahead and get right into it. So the movie starts off with us finding out about these new villains that have been unleashed. So we have 9, which is the main one, Mummy, Chimera, and Slice.
Yeah.
And they're like on the loose for a car chase scene in sequence.
I would say that it just begins and the League of Villains is transporting some mysterious cargo. You don't really know what it is, and then you find out that they were transporting 9, and you find out that 9 essentially signed up to be experimented on so that he could be turned into essentially a second all-for-one, like a person who could steal other people's quirks, only he can just store up to 9 quirks.
I like that his name was 9 before he became someone who could store 9 quirks. I think that's really important to note. But yeah, like the whole thing he's wearing too, like he has an apparatus on that looks just like All for One's apparatus too. So it, like visually looks similar as well.
I would say it definitely feels like the League of Villains were testing on him just to see if they could expand on All for One's powers a bit more, and they kind of designed the suit very similarly for 9 that they ultimately designed for All for One. But after that very brief introduction, we flash to our familiar heroes at Class 1A. And we find out that they're going to go to Nabu Island, this place that hasn't seen crime in decades, and they need a hero agency. And so they're just going to work at this hero agency by themselves without adult supervision. Should be a really cushy job because villains haven't attacked it in years. So, of course, the villains attack it while the class is there.
Right, of course, and it intersects. And yeah, as we find out, it's because 9 specifically needs a quirk that allows something with his blood. Do you remember exactly what it was?
So the cells in his body
cell
are like dying out, so he
Yeah.
specifically needs cell regeneration. And originally he steals a quirk that does it, but it only works on a specific type of blood, and so
it was like B blood, like type B, I think, if I remember correctly.
And so he's like, oh, this doesn't work because my blood type doesn't match, and then he realizes, oh, this person has a kid on this island, I'll just go take the kid's quirk.
Right, so that's when it collides. So that's when the storylines really start to, I don't know, it's like just a lot of battles, really, at that point. Like you get round 1 of battles, and then the round 2 of battles. And round 1 is, they didn't really lose per se. It was pretty evenly matched in round 1.
Yeah, I mean, Midoriya and Bakugo got handed pretty easily. Just, even though we don't actually get to see, I think, all of 9's 9 quirks, just with the few that he uses on Midoriya and Bakugo, they just can't keep up with him with the quirks at their disposal.
Yeah, but as it turns out, he's not a glass cannon, but it's like, he's like has a drain meter. It's like, it's like you're playing a video game, and his like power meter runs out after a certain point, and then he has to go like heal up and go to sleep in a tent.
Which I thought was a pretty decent flaw to give your villain character. Like, you don't want to just make him another All for One, because then it's like, well, of course they can't beat him. Like, All Might barely beat All for One, but by giving it this timer, it's like, oh, the kids can win against 9, not by necessarily beating him, just by outlasting him. They can just keep attacking him in wave after wave after wave until he just runs out of steam, and then his condition catches up with him.
Yeah, and like for me, and we'll get into it with the positives, but that's something I really liked, was his timer. I thought, like you said, it was a good flaw to give him. And then the other villains have like, you know, interesting new quirks that we haven't seen before.
Yeah, so you have Mummy, who can control people that he wraps up, Slice, who has needles for hair, kind of.
Yeah.
And then Chimera, whose quirk, I guess, is just Chimera, that he just has like a bunch of like animalistic body parts that he can grow out of his body at any given time.
I mean, it's really, I'd say more like an evolution monster in a way, because he kind of became like Godzilla at the end. Wasn't that like his ultimate thing, was like a kaiju monster?
Which is so weird, like, and again, we'll kind of go into this a bit more in depth when we're going over like the good and the bad, but like the entire backstory, his reasoning for joining up with 9 is that he felt like a freak, felt like a monster, and so he turned to a life of crime. And I'm like, how does anyone feel like a freak or a monster in this society when quirks are just a normal thing of everyday life?
Then we get to the final 10 minutes, which is the big spoiler, like really big spoiler.
It's like if you've been watching, and, like this is the moment that you want to turn this off if you really haven't seen the movie.
So watch it, come back, go to the theater and watch it. But that's when Midoriya and Bakugo are fighting Nine. And
they're losing again.
Well, first they're doing good, and this is one of my annoyances with it, which we'll get to in the bad part. But whatever, because it's a show and you have the ups and downs, they start losing again, like you said. And then as they're about to lose, Midoriya gives Bakugo One for All. One for all. I always confuse all for. I always switch them around.
You always have to like pause and think about it for a sec.
That's the way. But somehow they both have it. He didn't fully get. Well, it's like I mean,
it's
then
similar
like
to how All Might had it for a little bit, and he kind of like used it in doses. And Midoriya's like, I can hold on to the embers for the rest of this fight. After I've given it to Bakugo, so they both have One for All in the fight,
and just go insane and wallop on.
I do have to admit, like, the animation for both of them using One for All was pretty dope. Like, I have my qualms with the decision to make that the like saving grace in the final battle, but finally getting a chance to see in the anime what All Might kind of referenced, that a person who already has a quirk who takes on One for All, their quirk is like amplified to these huge levels. Like, Bakugo uses his explosion quirk to such an extent that like the ground around him begins to melt and he has to like climb out of the like hole that he's accidentally found himself in. I'm like, oh my god, Bakugo with One for All is like this unstoppable force.
Yeah, that's where I was just thinking, like, it was such a fan servicey moment in a way where like, you say you're a big Bakugo fan. I'm not. I don't dislike Bakugo. I'm just not a huge Bakugo fan. He's fine. But I was just thinking, like, wow, I'm sure people who love Bakugo are gonna be like, this is the moment I've been dreaming of.
This is my time.
This is it. But we'll get more into that with like the good and the bad. But yeah, so that's like basically the whole plot line. They end up, of course, saving the day in the end, and then Nine gets. Actually, he gets dusted.
Yeah, like Shigaraki shows up at the very end and says, which is really odd, that like Nine served his purpose in a way, and I'm like, I'm not quite sure what he was like supposed to be doing, and then just immediately kills him right then and there.
Yeah, they got to find out if the experiment works or not, I
guess.
Yeah, it's like, why not just go heal him up again, and then you still have another villain. But Shigaraki's not always the smartest. Like, just in general, he makes a lot of bad decisions. But that's sort of his arc, though. He's, because he's the Midoriya version of a villain. So, So let's get into the good and bad.
The good and the bad. So this movie does one of my biggest pet peeves when it comes to storytelling.
Oh, do tell.
Like, it's one of those things that when you tell a story and you decide to make these outrageous narrative developments, and then you decide in the last few moments to destroy those moments by saying like, oh, it was all a dream or something like that. That irks me to no end. So the fact that this movie in the final 2 minutes is like, and then when Bakugo woke up, he could not remember that he had One for All. He had amnesia. I'm like, how could you? How could you just take all of this, like, this huge moment where Bakugo and Midoriya, like, had come to this understanding. Bakugo realized how important this was to Midoriya to pass on the quirk to him. And then was just like, and it never happened. Because Midoriya and All Might will still remember, but they're not going to talk about it.
No, excuse me. It was a miracle of One for All.
Oh my God.
That's what it was. That was, I think, the exact quote from All Might. A miracle of One for All. Yeah, like, watching the scene where he gets One for All when Bakugo gets, I was thinking like, wow, that is a really bold decision.
Yeah, I can't wait to see how they're gonna handle this. Is like he gonna like give it back to Midoriya? Like what's gonna happen?
Right, I was thinking like, oh, maybe he's gonna give it back or something. Like I was kind of shocked. I was like, wow, like I really did not see that coming.
No.
Especially for like an anime, because like usually with these types of things, the movies are filler in a way, which is fine. Like usually if you like the show and it's a good filler, it's like a good filler episode. That's totally fine. And I was just like, that what? I was like so shocked.
This is huge. It's like you're taking the main character and you're taking away like the thing that he's been working on all this time and giving it to someone else. I'm like, this either has to not be canon or they have to have a really good explanation for how he gets it back.
Right. Like I was honestly, when it first happened, I was kind of conflicted because I like Midoriya and I was like, I wanted to see his growth, so I was conflicted, but I was like, that is bold. That's cool. That's bold. That's why My Hero's fun is they just like do things.
Yeah, they do these amazing, phenomenal decisions with their storytelling. I'm like, I can't wait to see how this plays out. And they're like, no, it doesn't matter. None of it matters. And I'm like, you took the coward's way out with the storytelling right there. I enjoy the movie so much until those like final 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Like I still have like my qualms of Midoriya even passing on One for All to Bakugo at all. I would have, I think, liked it a bit more if they had just found a way to succeed in that moment without having to do something like that. But that's writing the movie for the director, and I don't want to do that. But it's just one of those things.
Yeah.
I'm like, if you're gonna make that decision, I want a better emotional payoff for that decision in the end.
I mean, I usually prefer when battles like that are won through technique and smarts, which My Hero does a lot, which is what I like, as opposed to just sheer power. So for me too, it kind of pulled me away in the sense of like, oh, like I liked the strategies they were coming up with before. That was cool. Seeing like, oh, let's separate them and everything. Like that was really cool. So it's just like, oh, ultimate power showdown. I was like, all right, whatever.
I'm like like kind of what you said when they try to outthink their opponent. Like when they're fighting Nine for the second time, they have Kaminari like there to make sure that if he uses the lightning attack again, they're not hit by it, because that just KO'd them in the very first one, and they're like, we need to make sure that doesn't happen again. And they decide to use their quirks in tandem with like Bakugo throwing Midoriya with explosion and then Midoriya hitting with 20%, so it's technically stronger than 20%. And I'm like, this is clever. They're using their heads to come up with a better strategy. Yeah,
like the whole Denki thing was like a cool reveal, because they revealed some of the plan beforehand, but not all of it. So then when the Denki thing happens, like, oh, that's so clever.
I'm like, oh right, he hasn't actually been shown yet fighting anyone. I had just totally forgot about him. I'm like, that was nice.
Right. Another thing that for me was sort of I didn't like as much was it got kind of DBZ at the end. With 9.
This isn't even my final form.
Right, yeah, it was very much of that with 9, where like before they had the timer that was like a really interesting element of like, oh, if you wear him down enough, he's done. He can't fight anymore. But then 9, and same
reached his timer and was able to keep going.
And same with the Chimera, where he kept on leveling up, but at least like the Chimera didn't have that like the time limit.
Yeah.
He was never given that. But with 9, he specifically had that. And then they just ripped it away at the end, where it's like, no. Like, okay, he's gonna be, like, he's like, oh, I'm dead, but now I'm okay, and I rip off something else, I have more energy. And then, like, as he was about to finally, like, win, and then, you know, Bakugo and Midoriya saved the kid, then once again, he went, like, super crazy powerful. And it's like, your time limit was out multiple times at this point. Not just once, but twice. And
you've given no indication prior to this fight that you could go to this like more powerful level. And I don't know, it felt like they were just kind of almost pulling what they did with Two Heroes, the last movie, where the dude just kind of goes much stronger at the end. He just reveals like, oh, I actually have multiple quirks. I've been given an extra one from All for One, and you're like, oh crap, like this ties back into the rest of the story, and they're like, oh, let's just do that again. Let's have this dude kind of just go Super Saiyan at the end.
Yeah, and actually, so speaking of, we were gonna try to list all 9 quirks, because you were saying that you didn't think he used all 9. So obviously lightning's 1. Yeah. He has his like shield air thing, so that's 2.
Then he has the lasers that he can shoot from his fingertips.
3.
I wasn't sure if this was a quirk or not, but whenever his like eyes glowed, allowing him to identify what someone else's quirk was, I was like, maybe that's a quirk, maybe it's the tech that he's wearing, I'm not quite sure. But that could possibly be one of his quirk.
I feel like he had like an air blast thing that he did too.
Yeah.
Outside of the like shield one.
And then he had those dragon things.
Oh yeah, that's right, that's 6. And like, I'm assuming he got rid of the quirk that. Oh yeah, I'm assuming he got rid of the quirk that he took for B-type blood. I would guess that he got rid of that one. And then so he had like probably 6 or 7. So, but yeah, I think like the reason he couldn't take One for All.
The reason he said was that he didn't have enough room for it.
He didn't have enough room, but I think he didn't have enough room because like it had been passed through so many people that it was considered more than one quirk.
Yeah.
I think that's what I picked up from it, because One for All is like I don't know, it just keeps getting passed, so maybe that was it.
I was about to say I really don't want to spoil, and like this is not the place to talk about it, but like based on hints in this movie, based on the fact that Endeavor has a scar, that Shoto mentions that he's used his flames to such a great extent, and he's going to try using it with ice this time, that we actually see the identity of the 5th user of One for All, that this takes place much later than season 4. If I was to guess, I'm thinking that the Pro Hero Agency arc is going to finish season 4, and then there's one more arc that I think will be the first arc of season 5, and I think this movie takes place after that. And what you're kind of talking about, that One for All is made up of like multiple quirks, is kind of like explained in those arcs. So I think that's what they're hinting at in the movie.
And I think that's specifically why he couldn't take it, was for that reason.
He's like, oh, there's just too many.
Yeah, I mean, overall, like even if you didn't know that, like I don't really think this is one of those filler types of movies where it could take place in between Wedge after season 4 just fine for the most part, other than the Pro Hero thing.
Yeah.
Like you just wedge it there and it's like fine, that works. That works fine. All right. I mean, like overall I like the movie a lot though. So let's talk about good things.
Good
we
stuff.
didn't
It's
hate
not
the
all
movie. We just wanted to sandwich it. It was a sandwich. Sandwich the bad stuff in.
So My Hero Academia has a few spin-off manga, like My Hero Academia Vigilantes, and Vigilantes kind of goes into this idea that being a hero is more than just beating up the bad guy. Being a hero is just like doing the right thing, and beating up the bad guy kind of just ties into that.
Yeah.
And I like that this movie kind of brings those themes into the mainline story. Like, there's that scene where Midoriya's like explaining like what it means to be a hero, and Bakugo's just like listening like around the corner, and he's like trying to understand what Midoriya's definition of a hero is, because he thinks that might makes right, and he's like come to the realization that that's not everything that a hero needs to be, and he's like, oh, I want to kind of establish more of what it is. But then I was kind of irked that the movie didn't like pay that off in some respect. But to be fair, the fact that they acknowledged it at all, I really liked that. I like the idea of exploring heroism beyond just I can beat up the bad guy.
Yeah, it's like specifically the kid here, whose name I keep on blanking on, even though we wrote it. Whoops. But like, I'm bad with names in general. Just so everyone knows, I screw up names all the time. But like, regardless, like, I mean, it showed him at the end when he is healing Midoriya. You know, it's like he is being a hero. That's super heroic to do that and like save people's lives. It doesn't matter how you're doing it or if you're in the front lines. Like, that's a heroic thing to do. So I guess like in that regard, it paid off with like him as a kid realizing that he could be a hero.
That's true.
Without using brute and force. For me, like one of my favorite things about the movie was just seeing the different ways they put the heroes utilizing their abilities and working together. I always like that stuff. Like I was saying like before, when you see fights, they're more interesting that aren't just brute force, where it's like, oh, I have to figure out a strategic way to use my ability. And I feel like there's a lot of that, especially with them working together in new ways.
Yeah.
Like I like seeing Bakugo and Midoriya working together, like really working together. That was cool to see. It was like, wow, like it's cool how they're working off of each other and the ways that they can utilize each other's abilities.
Or when like Ida, Todoroki, and Kirishima are working together to like hit Chimera in like certain points so they can put Asui's like stun mucus thing like on him. I'm like, oh, that's clever. They're like, oh, we can't beat him, so let's try to hit him in like very specific spots, like all over his body, so we can paralyze him.
Yeah, or like as we were talking about with Denki, like just being like, oh, what's the way we can find to use Denki? And then it was having him be a lightning rod in the end. And like, it was one use, as Denki is a lot of times, but like still, it was like a nice, cool, interesting way to counteract one specific element. And I liked seeing all of that.
As the anime begins to focus more and more on Midoriya, Bakugo, Todoroki, and Ida, it's nice to see them like remember that everyone else has been growing too, and that they can also participate in the fight.
Yeah, Denki's my boy. I want to see him more. I'm Denki fan for life.
One of my favorite things about My Hero Academia is that they typically introduce like specific themes to specific arcs and then try to reinforce that theme in whatever the final battle for that arc is. Like during the Stain one, it was the idea that the identity of a hero is rigid, which was Stain, and then the idea of a hero can change, which was the students fighting him, and Stain uses the same fighting style throughout that fight, and then Midoriya, Todoroki, and Ida have to adapt, and that allows them to beat them to showcase that, yes, the idea of a hero can change. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And this one, the movie seemed to be suggesting the idea of like selfishness versus selflessness. Like Nine wants his plan to succeed and create this society, and he's willing to do any means necessary to do it. And the students are protecting this one boy who technically he's not even going to die. Nine just wants to steal his quirk and then just leave. So if they let him have the kid, they could still like save everyone per se, but like the selfless thing to do is to make sure that this kid doesn't lose his quirk. And it kind of then ties into Midoriya passing One for All to Bakugo. The selflessness of the act allows them to defeat the selfishness of Nine. But
I mean, I'd say beyond that though, like he's gonna be a powerful, unstoppable villain in a way if they let him get that quirk. I guess they did realize that halfway through the movie. So I think there's also that element. It's like, oh, we have to stop him from being insanely powerful. Like that's also another element too. Which when like the kid started running at 9 at the end, and he's like doing his like run. I was like, stop! I get you're trying to be heroic, but no, this is
But it gives him the same cool white background that Midoriya had when he was saving Bakugo from the slime monster.
No!
And it's like, he could be a hero too.
This is the wrong move. No! I was like, oh, you're so dumb. Another thing too, as you mentioned, like the animation was really good. I mean, that's in general, like My Hero has good animation, period. But, same thing with the first film, which I like this one a lot more than the first film. But same thing with the first film, and now this one. This one has just really cool animation.
Like just the effects of Bakugo's explosions and Midoriya using One for All. He's still just using it at 20% in this movie, but the fluidity of the movements is just so spot on. Like you're just drawn into the fact that Bakugo and Midoriya, they're making these split-second decisions and just like responding at the last moment, and they're doing everything that they possibly can to essentially outmaneuver Nine, and like it just comes through like in the visual style that they're using.
And something else I wanted to mention, because I mentioned it before in the bad section, but it should be in the good section, and I said that, was that I really did like the fact that Nine had that interesting flaw where he essentially has a timer to it's like a MP meter really in a video game where like once he uses all of his magic, like he's done and he needs to take a break and he can't anymore. And I was like, that's a cool element. And then it's like you have to wear down that timer. And I like that, where they had to figure out a tactical way of like, how do we use everybody to keep getting him to use his abilities until he's out of time and he's done. And then the ending happened, which I didn't like. But up until then, it was really cool, where it's like, okay, let's distract people by having like some of the enemies go here, some of them go to the right side, and then he's gonna go down the middle, and then we'll throw a couple of the students at him who are long-range students, where we can, keep them away to like keep him using his long-range attacks, and then at least get some of that MP down, and then like keep on like whittling down his MP bar, and that was a cool element. I like that.
I'd say so many shonen series are defined by the good guy winning by just beating the bad guy. It was refreshing to see a take that was more, well, we can't really beat the bad guy, but maybe we can kind of like force him to almost beat himself. And it presented a new type of goal for the students to strive for that they normally don't have to. So,
like I like seeing them grow. I like shonen a lot. I like the growth of the characters, but the tactics element is, from a battle perspective, to me, it's much more interesting to watch.
It's amazing how good this movie is until right before the ending. It's got great characterization.
Yeah.
It doesn't do that whole annoying thing. Here's this character and their quirk. Here's this character and this quirk. They just showcase what the quirk is, and you're able to just kind of identify what it is. The soundtrack's phenomenal. The animation's really good.
Yeah.
And it's just this really well-written, well-animated film that just kind of fits in between some arc in My Hero Academia. And then it just, for whatever reason, just makes that odd choice at the end and kind of dashes not all of the goodwill, obviously, that it had established, but like leaves this weird taste in your mouth when you're done watching the movie.
I feel like it was just a fan servicey thing at the end, and like I do think that there's gonna be some people watching right now who are watching us who are like, that was the coolest moment. I love that. I guarantee it that there's someone who watched it who like that was their favorite part of it, and that's fine. I guess both of us didn't like it.
I don't even like disagree that it wasn't cool. Like it was really cool to see Bakugo like use One for All.
And I guess if there's a place to do it, it's in one of these movies. Like that's usually where they do that stuff in anime, is these types of movies. And yes, it was cool to watch. It was cool to see him with it. Definitely, like it was cool to see what he'd be like with it. But that's why it felt just fan servicey and fine. But like I like the rest of the movie a lot more than that. Also, I didn't like the music they chose at the end. I wanted to hear the sound effects. They took away the sound effects and they just had the music during that scene. I was like, no, I want to hear the explosions. I want to hear things like ripping apart and all that.
I was say they went for the whole like quiet, playing the soft like string like slightly in the background type.
And then like the singing and all that.
Yeah, it was very similar to the scene, and might even have been the exact same song now that I think about it, when Midoriya is fighting Overhaul in season 4 and he's trying to escape with Eri and he accidentally uses One for All at 100% and he goes like flying through the ceiling. It felt like that moment just like dragged out over like the entirety of the latter part of the final battle.
I guess my favorite stuff is like when the track Run starts playing and then you hear like the explosions and sound effects with like that upbeat music. I'm like, that's my My Hero. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I like the sound effects being played. It's a minor qualm, but I don't know. I guess I might as well air it here in this review.
And to be fair, like I've said so many negative things about the movie, but I did enjoy it. Like I did, thinking back on it, enjoy what the movie did. I can't get past the ending. I can't do it.
You know what? Actually, something else that I liked about it, though, just to throw this out, is that I feel like the last movie, they only showed a couple characters really, and the other ones really felt like side characters. In this one, you really see all of UA, all the class, just like doing their thing and using their quirks and really feeling part of it. Right.
Yeah, it's a better movie, I think, than Two Heroes.
And like I like those other characters outside of Midoriya and Bakugo a lot. Like they're really well written and fun characters. I mean, for the most part, like there are some who are pretty one-dimensional, but for the most part, they're really good characters. So it was nice seeing a lot more of them in this movie. So Jordan, let's do how did you feel about the movie minus the final 2 minutes?
What?
And then how did you feel about it including the final 2 minutes?
That feels like to cheat so much. It's like to just cut off the part that I didn't like all that much. But I don't know. I think it's a fine filler movie. Like you said before, this is one of those movies that you don't need to watch to enjoy the main story of My Hero Academia. It's just something that just is supposed to naturally fit in, which is why Bakugo is supposed to forget that he had One for All at some point, on the chance that that comes up in the manga at some point. They're like, no, we made sure that he doesn't forget. He's at the same point that he ended the movie that he started, so you don't have to worry about that character development at all. But I enjoyed the movie. I'll see it again. I'll watch it again. I'll probably go see it in the theaters with friends and whatnot, and I'll recommend it to people just with a very strong caveat that you might leave the theater not wondering why they made that decision right at the end.
Yeah.
It's a really odd decision to just give a character amnesia. Like, that is a strange choice when really you could have tried to write something.
I really feel like it was just a case of they wanted to put that fan service moment in so bad. And like, we have to do this.
And they just wrote themselves into a corner and they're like, how do you
how do we get rid of that? Yeah.
But how about you? What are your final verdict on the movie?
I would say with that ending included, I'd probably give it like a B+. I don't know. Like, I really enjoyed it up until that point. So like it was, to me, I liked it much more than the first movie. It had a lot of the types of things that I like from My Hero in general. Like the battle scenes were fun and good. And then just the character moments were good. So yeah, I'd say maybe like we don't really do grades, but I'm gonna give it a grade. I'd say like a B+. If we took out that ending part, I'd probably honestly give it like an A. So I liked it a lot. It was great outside of the end. So yeah.
That's such a weird thing to say about a movie. It's just such a good movie until the end. And
but
then
it's
the
just
end
like,
just.
But it's like up until those like last 5 minutes though.
It's a great movie.
Right, it was, and like they felt completely different. It was like I almost felt like you could rip that off, and I'd be like, oh, that was great.
Yeah, I almost just want to like wait until the Blu-ray comes out and then show it to my friends, and like when that happens, just like cut it off and like, and that's where it ends. I'm like, really? I'm like, yes.
Right, before they wake up and it's like, oh, he has amnesia. Before that moment, it's like, there you go, that was it.
Yeah.
There you go. So that wraps up what we thought of the movie. If you saw it, what did you think? Did you enjoy it? What did you think of the Bakugo moment, especially?
I would say, I really want to hear all y'all's thoughts on the ending. Please leave them down in the comment section.
But you can find me on Twitter at @TheDaveKlein.
And so you can find me at JMRAMEE.
And yeah, see you guys in another video. Later, guys.